You know, moving around with other women is going to break your marriage. But you kept on moving around with other women. And when your wife is about to leave, you start to beg her not to leave. The question is, what are you begging her for? Our government knows that if you don't cater to the lives of the poor people, then definitely you don't have a country. Because the poor people you don't cater to will definitely cause a big disruption in the order of things. But because of their selfish interests, it comes before the poor. And the poor is left alone to suffer. And when people start to ask due questions about leadership, you say, oh, they have no right to talk. What do you mean by they have no right to talk? As a leader, you're supposed to be able to cater for them. Mike, just mute yourself, please. I'll bring you on soon. Just mute yourself. I'll come to you soon. So, as a leader, you must know that it is profitable to be able to help your people. You must know that it is profitable to be able to help your generations yet unborn. And that's why I'm bringing Mike today from Arise Africa to come and talk about, the lack of wisdom we see as regards taking care of IDPs in this country. Mike is an American that has done a lot for taking care of IDPs. You'll have seen most of the videos shared across all my platforms. I'd like to welcome Mike Arnold. He's a mayor of Branco in Texas. And he's passionate about internally displaced people in Nigeria, which is as a result of the bad leadership we have in our country. Great to have you, Mike. And welcome to this session.
Thank you so much. It's an honor to be here with you.
Thank you, Mike. Mike, please, I want you to tell me about your experience at the IDP camp in Abuja. Millions of people are listening to this.
Yes, sir. Well, we first discovered the IDP camp in Abuja in 2019. We were supposed to be speaking at a large crusade, and our organizer had put the whole event together. But before we left, he was in prayer and he felt the Spirit tell him that we were in danger, and he canceled the event. And that is by God's grace, because there was an outbreak of violence at the venue when we did not show up. So we believe that there were people waiting for us. So instead of going to the event, he said, I feel we should go to an IDP camp. He had never been to one, and I didn't even know what IDP meant. But I said, okay, let's go. So we went, and we went to New Kuchingoro. It's in the heart of Abuja. It's surrounded by condominiums and development. But it's the most horrific living conditions you can imagine. And these are not people there by choice, not there by their own flaws or mistakes. They're there because they're victims. These are dignified people. A lot of them are very educated people. They're hardworking people who just happen to live in the wrong community and happen to follow the wrong religion. And they had already been in this. By 2019, many of them had already been in the camp for 5 years. In structures they had to build themselves. They had to, women, children, men, they had to find scrap materials and build structures. There was a sewage ditch through the middle. There was no fresh, clean water, no housing, no sanitation, no health care, no food, nothing provided to these people. And I met several of them, and hearing the stories of how they were, their community was totally destroyed, brutal. The stories will make you cry. The loved ones being hacked to death with axes and shot with, I mean, just merciless, just brutality. Men, women, and children, and their stories of escape. Many there. One woman said that she was in a small group of women and children and young men who fled, had to leave at night and hide and work their way through Cameroon for several days. and Boko Haram chased them. There was a nursing mother who was nursing a 2-month-old child that was shot and killed. And how they were finally bounced around the country and made their way to Abuja. Um, One woman, Miss Hannatu, who was a school administrator, very beloved community leader in Gwoza, living now in a shack in New Kuchingoro, um, told me when we had 3 young daughters, when she finally made it to Abuja, 500 miles from her home, she thought she had made it to heaven because the roads were paved and there's fancy buildings and cars and lights, and she thought they were going to be okay. And they turn off the highway and just go a little ways down a dirt track to this horrific place, and she was told they had to stay there. She said her heart sank, but when she walked into the camp, the children ran to her and said, "Teacher is here. Teacher is here."
Hmm.
And yeah, so she built a shack for herself and her daughters, where she's lived for 10 years until just a couple weeks ago when they demolished it. But she started teaching children, and when I
So she started
encountered her,
teaching children in the IDP camps,
yes,
and
because
she
she
ran
said
a school in the IDP camp in Abuja.
in New Kuchingoro, yes, and there's actually at least 13 IDP camps in Abuja. Somewhere around, there's no census. The government denies these people exist. The United Nations denies these people exist. But there's at least 25, 30,000
So there are at
IDPs
least 13. Have you visited the 13 IDP camps in Abuja you're talking about?
in the FCT. Yes, sir, in the FCT. And more in the surrounding states. Nobody knows how many total, but we know of at least probably 30,000 in the FCT that are IDPs. Again, these are the previous administration tried to label these people as vagrants and homeless and lazy. They should just go back home. It's okay to go back home,
In
and they
fact,
can't.
Mike, the minister of the FCT recently said that they are going to remove all the beggars from the streets. Probably some of them are the internally displaced people that have to go beg outside to eke a living. But the minister said they're going to throw them out. That's the bad thing about this country. And that's why I was preaching about the lack of wisdom this morning for our leaders to care for the poor. Please, if you want to join us on this conversation, my sermon is reaching out to IDPs this morning, the lack of wisdom in our personal lives. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. And I've got Mike Arnold with us. Thank you so much. Mike is a government official, is a mayor of a town in Texas, in America. The town is Branco. As a mayor of Branco, but he's here on this mission to be able to help IDPs, and we're supporting him. We're partnering with him. We're praying for him. He's been visiting Nigeria for about a week. So, Mike, can you tell us some of the things you've been doing for the IDPs and how my listeners all over the world can also support? What are some of the things? I understand you've been able to help them with a school there. What are some of the
Yes,
things
sir.
and the needs of these people? Because now they are homeless. And how can we get
Yes.
them a place? And that was why, because initially, let me just for reference, I met Mike Arnold because Mike, Panampesi Paul, another great, gospel ministers of God, were trying to hold a concert to raise about 10 billion to be able to build IDP camps for people, to be able to give them somewhere befitting to live, which is going to be like a transit camp before they get back their lives, and we can set them up properly. And we've been doing a lot of work on the IDPs, but the concert couldn't hold again because of one politics or the other. But we are still going to continue with this mission. And Mike is in Nigeria. We're raising money for IDPs, internally displaced people, and we're helping them. So if you want to call and ask Mike some questions, 0818-099-1991. So what are some of their needs, Mike?
Well, I was completely amazed and totally humbled by the response when I asked the IDPs when I first
Okay, let's
encountered the
hold on a
camp.
bit, Mike. I think we got some caller coming in. Hello, how are you? Hello? Oh, we lost that. Please do well to
That's
call
okay.
us back. Mike, so sorry, I'll be interrupting you from time to time. We have some callers calling in that I want to say one or two things and say to you. So as you were saying, Mike,
That's okay.
but the number once
So
again is 0818-099-1991. Please get to a clear,
when I
comfortable
asked
place before you call us back. Yeah.
when I asked the mothers in the camp, what is it we can do to help when we first encountered them? And again, these are people with absolutely nothing, everything taken away from them, with just fighting every day for survival to find clean water and food and all. And I said, what is it we can do for you? What do you need? And they responded, I'm totally humbled by this. They said, help teach our children.
Hmm.
They said, with education, that's their only way out of here. They will have hope, they will have strength of character, and they will have a path out of here. And so we started a school in New Kuchingoro camp, and then
Hmm.
the next year we started a school in the Durumi camp, which is not too far away. And we've broken ground and started construction on a school in the Wasak camp that's also in the FCT. Now we have over 500 students. It's a free education, 100% free, high quality. We have 15 very qualified, they're very wonderful teachers, full time. And so we're working to fulfill the request of the parents. And these children, you go into the classrooms now and you ask, the children, do you know what you want to be when you grow up? And they all raise their hands. And one wants to be a doctor, and one wants to be a lawyer, and one wants to be a pilot, and one wants to be an artist. And it warms my heart that these children do have hope now, and they do see a path out, and they're working to better themselves to get out of the camp. But the needs are so great. You see the healthcare issues, people that there's a young woman that died in camp just a couple weeks ago, about 3 weeks ago. Uh, 22 years old. Name was Aisha. Beautiful young girl. She knew that no one was coming to help, so she was focused on bettering herself and working her way out of camp. And she started a TikTok channel, and just herself singing songs and just a beautiful girl. And she had worked her way up to thousands of followers, and she was making it. She was getting there, and she got sick, and very sick. And they took her to a hospital. They wouldn't treat her properly because there were lack of funds, and which is illegal. She was a card-carrying IDP. She was supposed to get free treatment, but the staff members at this
Hmm.
hospital denied it. And so they arranged for another hospital to take her, but the first hospital wouldn't let her go without payment, and she died. She died because these staffers were trying
Hmm.
to shake them down illegally for money. That was several weeks ago, and they refused to release her body to their loved ones. They tagged her as unknown, as a found body, so it would stay off the books, stay off the record, so they could shake down, try to get money from these IDPs. And it was several weeks, and I had to go in very strong. Got her body released, and they were able to lay her to rest. But those are the things these people face. It's horrific. It's unimaginable trauma in a city surrounded by wealth and a wealthy overall. The nation has quite a bit of wealth. There's no reason for this. It is nothing but politics. And we know of the camps in Abuja, about 30,000, but the lowest official estimate from international observers is there's 2.5 million people like this living in Nigeria. The highest estimates I've seen are up to 9 million people. And these are not people there by choice. They're good people. They want to work, but when they get stuck in this situation, there's really no way out. It's unimaginable that how somebody that fights daily just to survive can climb out of a situation like that. I can't imagine a more
Okay,
desperate
let's
situation.
see if this. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning. Oh, you've been trying to call me. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Douglas. I'm calling from Lagos, Surulere, Lagos.
All right.
Okay, so my contribution is first and foremost, I want to thank you guys. What you guys are doing a great job.
Thank you.
And I want to thank Mr. Mike. He's doing a wonderful job. We have so much of these problems around, and we need people like him. And I would also plead with him to train people like him, to train Nigerians, some of us, to be like him, because a lot of people want to assist, there's so many problems, and this is just one of them. So to go back to the topic, yes, you said something like leaders lack wisdom. I agree with you 100%, because the only problem we have in this country is leaders with wisdom. It doesn't take anything. If one man can turn a desert into one of the biggest cities in the world, if people can turn a desert into a city, then we are turning a treasure and a gold mine into rebels in Nigeria. So you can imagine the quality, the kind of results we are getting, is kind of leaders that we have.
Yes.
So I just want to encourage you to keep doing this. I might not have time to be able to talk more on the IDPs, but you guys are doing a fantastic job. I love this. In fact, I was driving my kids, I had to pack to make sure that I put in my voice on this. You guys are doing a wonderful job. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. I will keep doing this great job for IDP. Hello, Annie Gold from America. How are you? Annie Gold? Hello, Annie? Oh, we're trying to connect to the phone lines. Please, you can still call us up, 0818-099-1991. And Pastor Mike, you can see some of the feedback, we're getting there as regards this. And like you said, in a country with so much wealth, people shouldn't suffer that way. Abuja has a lot of wealth, but you have 13 IDP camps in Abuja, and you're telling us to go restore. Hello, how are you?
Hello.
Great to have you.
Yeah, this is Mama Hecho from US.
Hello, Mama Hecho.
Hello.
Hello, great to have you.
Yeah, good morning, sir.
What's your name?
Yeah, this is Mazaka Jaja from Okoto.
Okay, great to have you. So I've got Pastor Mike with me. We're working on the IDPs together.
Yeah. Please, Mr. Rufai, there's one person I don't read it. I want to ask you. I don't know if you can help me.
Yeah.
Yeah, my question is this. What is the characteristics of a politician, a professional politician?
Normally, it's supposed to be honesty, integrity, conscience, and love for his people. But in Nigeria, the characteristics have changed to dishonesty, lack of integrity, lack of conscience, lack of love for the people, lack of wisdom, selfishness, and greed. And that's why we are facing the problems we are facing.
The reason why I'm asking this question is that the people we celebrate as our the most experienced politicians, they have one baggage, one application or the other. That's what this person has been telling me.
Yes. Yes. And society is very warped to celebrate bad people. Those are the problems we have. We celebrate criminals. Hello, Mama Echo. Is that you?
Hello, sir.
Great to have you. Please speak up, ma.
Hello. Okay. Good morning. This is Mama Hecho from US.
Yes, Mama Echo from the US.
Yeah.
I've got Brother Mike with us from US too, but he's in the IDP camp in Abuja. We're doing a lot of great work for them.
Yeah. So I want to address Mr. Mike.
Yeah.
Mr. Mike, I want to thank you for what you are doing, but we need more than this. I need you when you come back, there is need to go to Congress. Because the truth is this, the insecurity happening in Nigeria, the hands of the West is not going to be ruled out. Because the major issue that is happening, causing insecurity in the North, is because of the mineral resources that they are getting illegally.
Yeah, blood minerals. That's also causing the
That's right.
insecurity in the North. Yeah.
That's right.
That is what is causing the insecurity. And the hands of the West is not above it.
Yeah.
I live in US. when you come back, I want us to work together. The West need to remove their hands and get our mineral resources legally. If they get it legally, it will stop this. Then the corruption that has pursued us, the hands of the West is also part of it.
Yeah.
Why did I say so? When they are bringing the money from Africa into the West, they open their borders so wide. They allow them to steal the money they're supposed to use to build the nation, and they bring it to the West. They use it to open accounts. They use it to buy property. They use it to open companies. And the West, they know all this. Because why am I accusing them to be bad? I am saying so because when they were bringing in these resources, if they ask them to go back with it, to use it to develop Africa, corruption would have stopped.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
I am saying we are the children of corrupt parents, and the West are our parents.
Okay, thank you so much, Mama Rachel. I really appreciate you for your comments. Thank you. Thank you so much.
And the only way to stop it is for people like you, people like me, to go to the Congress and say, you know what, you can get all this.
Okay, Mama Rachel, we'll hold it there. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you. I mean, for Mark, she said it all. The West is also complicit. Blood minerals. You know, she's talking about you also going to Congress to be able to highlight some of these things. And also, you know, the West should stop keeping havens for corruption. You know, our corrupt politicians, when they steal all the money that they ought to use for IDPs, they are bringing it to the West to put in bank accounts. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, sir.
Morning, great to have you. What's your name?
Yes, this is my first time joining your program. This is Mr. Monday from Agege, Lagos. Good morning.
Mr. Monday,
your guest.
thank you so much. And bro, Arnold is here with us from America, that is working with us in the IDPs. Go ahead, talk to us.
Thank you very much. You see, I love your program today, and the title you bring concerning the government, they don't have wisdom. It will be as if we are not civil enough to talk to them. Look at the money you bring in IDP camps from outside. I'll be doing all these things. And my own question is, Maybe Wike is the FTC minister. Is he not seeing all these shenanigans going on in the country?
In fact, you remember what Wike said? He said that they are going to push all the beggars off the streets. Some of them are the IDPs just begging for a living. You think people love to beg? Just imagine what our leaders are saying. You think they have wisdom?
No, the president not add to the add sheet. I'm telling you what is going on around me. People that is hardworking, don't play beggars.
Yes.
And the thing that pains me, what that man said, that the person that died, they arrest his body. How can it be? How can it be?
That's the sad reality.
This is my first time joining your program. Honestly, I enjoy this your program today. And kudos to that Mr. Mike there. Good morning if he's hearing me.
It's greeting you, Mr. Mike. I'm sure you can hear him. You can hear us coming through.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you. The phone lines are still open, 0818-099-1991. So what would you say as regards that blood minerals going to the Congress so that we can also push political power behind this, you know, and a lot of Nigerians speaking up as regards what we can do? Good one. God bless you for building all the schools. What more can we still do, you know, and how can also people reach, you know, Arise Africa with all these great initiatives they're doing?
So there's a website that we've set up. It's idpjustice.org. idpjustice.org. You can go from there to our organization, Africa Arise, but there's also a petition that we've started that when we get enough signatures, I will personally present it to President Tinubu. The federal government could end this with the stroke of a pen. They could end this with the Nigerian military goes to other countries to establish peace. Why don't they do it in their own nation? This is
Yes.
political decision making. But I believe that the Nigerians I know, this is my 15th time in Nigeria since 2010. I consider it my second home. I have the highest hopes for Nigeria. The people of Nigeria are amazing. Amazing, world class. I believe Nigeria can be prominent in the world and respected in the world. But this is the fundamental issue holding the nation back. And, you know, I've learned that there's no such thing as darkness. And when there's darkness all around, it's because the light's not shining. And we need to shine the
Mhm.
light. I suggest, first of all, if you're in Nigeria, I guarantee you there's an IDP camp not far from you. You probably don't know it, but find a camp, go in there and meet these people because they're not three letters. They're not IDPs. They're young people like Aisha. There's amazing young men like Enoch Johanna. There's women like Miss Hannatu. Get to know them and hear their stories. Shine the light. Tell their stories. Show their faces. And the darkness can't stand. I know the good people of Nigeria will rise up when they know the truth, when they know the full scope of the truth. So shine the light, and I appreciate you doing this on the show. The other thing is there's two statistics that I believe are directly correlated, Doctor. Nigeria is the number one nation on earth for Christian genocide, by far. Nigeria also, last time I saw the statistic, is home to 8 of the 10 richest Christian pastors on earth. They compete for private jets and Rolls Royces and such. That is not the Christian message I know. That's not the Christ I know. That is a
God
false
bless you,
teaching.
Pastor Arnold. You remember that I was a pastor of one of the biggest places in this country that denied us of our concert. We don't just want to say that on the air. A big pastor in this country denied us of that concert. So let's just say that on the air. I mean, it's sad.
Yeah, I'll take the heat. They can come for me if they want to. I'll tell the truth that Jesus didn't come so his people could get rich. These people that call themselves pastors, that all they want is money, they're not feeding the sheep, they're fleecing the sheep. They're robbing from God. They're building monuments to themselves. If the body of Christ, if the people who call themselves Christians in Nigeria were to stand up and model Christ, to serve and to give and to love, there is more than enough wealth, there's more than enough resources, there's more than enough people, there's more than enough influence among just the people who call themselves Christians to establish a nation of love and peace, just through their, not even through politics, not even through force, but just by loving their neighbor as themselves. There would be no more IDPs in this nation tomorrow if Christians would just do their job that was given to them to love one another. But we have deceptive leaders who call themselves pastors who fleece the sheep for their own enrichment, and it is killing the body here, and it is killing Nigeria, and that heresy needs to stop.
Thank you so much for that. 0818-099-1991. And don't forget, the website is just idpjustice.org. idpjustice.org. If you want to get more details as regards the great work, Pastor Mike is doing, the mayor of Branco in Texas, 0818-099-1991. We're talking about IDPs. Pastor Mike is doing some great work, and we're also part of it, doing great publicity. Like I said before, how I met Pastor Mike was because Pastor Mike, Pastor Paul, and a couple of other great people were trying to build an IDP camp, to raise about 10 billion to build a proper IDP camp, to be able to give a proper place for these people to live as they transit back to their lives. But we couldn't do that concert because, like Pastor Mark was saying, some churches, goodness me, they claim they love God, but we know what goes on the underhand, and we wonder sometimes, do these people really reflect Christ that they preach to their millions of followers? So it's not about the big fancy things for a pastor. It's about what you do for the body of Christ and people that are suffering. Hello, how are you?
Good morning, Mr. Rufai.
Morning, great to have you. Speak up, please. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
Peter from Isolo.
Peter from Isolo. Pastor Mike is here with us too.
Yes, I want to thank you.
Speak up. We can't hear you, Peter. We can't hear you properly.
I want to thank you and Pastor Mike. I appreciate all of you, what you are doing. God will help you people. God will make you. The way you are helping people, God will.
Oh, we lost that. So please, you can still call us up 0818-099-1991 and just reach out. And that's why, next week, Saturday, I'm also doing something at my foundation, giving dental care to villagers. I mean, if we can all reach out, see what Pastor Mike is doing, setting up schools in the IDP camps. If we can all reach out and come together and show the love of Christ, then society will truly be better. There's an American rock band I listened to, Nickelback. He said something very profound. He said, if everyone loved, nobody will die. If everyone cared, nobody will cry. We can actually see a day where, I know it's not hypothetically possible, but we can actually see a day where nobody will cry because there will be so much abundance of love. And that's just it. The contrast, pastors buying private jets here and there, and at the same time, you're seeing people suffering. Those pastors should go and sell that private jet and invest it in the people. You're not going to take that jet to heaven. The greatest place you will live is in the hearts of humanity, the hearts of people. I don't want to have luxury where people suffer. Anything I have, it's best you sell it to be able to help the people. Sell it to be able to help the people. That's why I do a lot of the work I do. There's another brother that calls Manjem Pharmaceutical. He's now opened a foundation called Icon of Hope. His own is to feed prisoners. We're supporting him also. That's why we bring people like that to support them here. You cannot say you have all the luxury in the world and people are suffering. A rich man amongst poor people, a poor man, Nigeria is a poor country, as long as we have not fixed the IDP problem and our leaders lack wisdom. The Bible talks about wisdom being profitable to direct. You cannot say people are suffering and you let them suffer and you don't do anything about it. No. Because for every person you see suffering and you never did anything about it, God is going to ask you. You think the wealth you have in life, you're not going to give account? You think every penny, every cent, every naira, every kobo you're given in life, you think you're not going to give account? You think because people don't see you how you spend it, you're going to give account. And you're going to give account to God, your maker. That's just it. So please, let's just take some more calls in today. And as we start to wrap this up, then we'll play other insightful messages we've lined up for all of you, our great listeners, this Sunday morning. We've got something from Lumumba. I'm also going to play something. I've told, thank God, to play something afterwards. The speech of the president of Kenya when he won the election. All the things he claimed he was going to do. Today, he has reneged on all of them. And that's how the cookie crumbles with these politicians. I don't know, maybe there's some power that pushes them away from doing good. This was the same man that swore heaven and earth he was going to change a lot of the Kenyan people. Today, they're protesting on the streets, they're crying, they're in pain while he's feeding fat. I was in Kenya recently. A taxi driver told me, he said, our president is worth billions, over 3 trillion shillings. That's what he told me. And I can't get 5,000 shillings to pay for my child's school fees. That's just it, you see. So this problem you're talking about, Pastor Mike, is all over Africa. And we are changing Africa. We are changing Africa. 0818-099-199. Go ahead, Pastor Mike.
I received a word from the Lord many years ago that what man has long called the dark continent, God desires to raise to be the continent of light. And Hallelujah. I believe that potential is there. The people I know, every Nigerian I know, is a remarkably good person, faithful, strong, bright, educated. I mean, there's so much strength in the Nigerian people. And it's just that they're lied to repeatedly over and over. And the policies and stuff and the government just works against them. But I would encourage every Nigerian to find an IDP camp, go and hear the stories, and just commit to helping one person. If you could just help one of them, just help one of them. If every Nigerian did that, all the IDPs would be taken care of tomorrow. You cannot sit there and expect the government to change and do the job. That's not going to happen. But when the people stand up and do the job, the government's going to have to follow. The government will always let you down. Rise up as a people and do the right thing. Help. If you can help one person, If all of us do that, then everybody will be helped.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. The website, once again, Pastor Mike, as we start to wrap up, 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. The website, once again, I want you to call it for people as we start to wrap up this Sunday morning.
The website's idpjustice.org.
idpjustice.org. You know, somebody says, somebody blessed me this month. I have nothing to eat with my daughter. I mean, that's a pervasive level of poverty that's going on in the country and deprivation. So it's just very sad. idpjustice.org. And what are the names of those schools, you know, Pastor Mike, in case people want to go and visit those schools that are built in the camps for people?
Okay, so we operate under the name Arise Academy.
Okay.
Now, in New Kuchingoro, there was an empty building that was there that already had a name. It was called Sharing Prosperity School. So we have operated there with that name, but the school is run and staffed by Arise Academy. In Durumi Camp in Abuja, it's Arise Academy, and the same in Wasa. So Africa Arise is our organization. Our schools are the Arise Academies.
Okay. Thank you so much. Thank you. Really appreciate you. Thank you. Let's still see if we can get one or two calls. I think we have somebody trying to call us up. We lost that. 0818-099-1991. 0818-099-1991. I mean, apart from Abuja, have you heard of another place too that have got some of these IDP camps? Let's take this call. Hello, how are you?
Hello, good morning, gentlemen in the studio.
Morning, great to have you. What's your name? Where are you calling from?
My name is Mr. Azubik. I'm calling from Nigeria, Lagos.
Great to have you. Talk to me, sir.
I have been enjoying your program. But you see, my brother, this country, just as Pastor Mike, your guest, said, is a very wonderful country. But you know what I am suggesting as a solution to this unique country? We should borrow from UK, restructure Nigeria. Let the East manage their resources. Let the West manage their resources. Let the North manage their resources. I'm telling you, you will see competition and the beauty of this country. But as we are being together like this, even in the next 100 years, sir, in politics, this is Yoruba man. We will never make any headway except we restructure this country. Even as someone coming from US, each state in the United States manage their resources. And that's why America is great. If they are running the kind of Nigeria system of government, honestly speaking.
But let me ask you a question, sir. If you restructure this country with the level of bad leaders you have, you're not still going to solve the problem. I think we should also work on leadership. As long as you have criminals, very terrible people lead us, you will now see that the difference is just going to be that the fight will not be among the internal folks of every region or every state.
It will minimize.
It's not going to minimize anything. When we had regions, the problem that what emanated from the region. The southern region, for instance, there was development in the southwest when Awolowo was there. Hang on a minute. Until you had the likes of Akitola, I was more concerned about himself. And you can see the fight among the regions that started. So we should also, apart from, what's it called, regionalizing the country, like you were saying, we should also focus on our leaders. We have bad leaders. What about the church leaders? Are they regional leaders? Look at what Pastor Mike said. Between you and I, we wanted to hold a concert for this IDP. A church leader played politics on us. So we see these things. We can't just mention names. Let's not mention names. Let's not stir the hornet's nest. People need to change.
What do you think is the solution?
What we need to do is to change the mindset of the people at the leadership. Let's work at that. Let's work at that, because if that mindset is not changed, if we don't build a society where evil is not supported, if we don't build a society where when you do evil, people castigate you. But what do we do in this society? It's as if it's the evil ones we support and we celebrate because they have money. And life is not about money. That's one of the problems killing us. We are too money focused, money centered. If we don't break that mentality, nothing is going to happen. So we need to sensitize. We need to start from the family. We start from everywhere. If we don't get that right, any system of government we use will fail because it is still the leaders. I mean, look at FCT minister saying that beggars will be removed from the streets. You think people love to beg? And you have a leader like that, people are choosing because of what they want to get from him.
To my point, you remember he demolished one Igbo man large acres of land, and he said, "How can an Igbo man have such a vast land?" But he bought it.
So see, my brother, it's not about demolishing Igbo land, Yoruba land, or Hausa land. We're not talking about tribe now. We're talking about one Nigeria. Except we stop the bad mindset of leadership, which can be from any area. That's the country will not change. So if the people are not ready to force the leadership to change, we are not ready. We are joking. We are joking. All of them are the same. Even church leaders are the same. Mosque leaders are the same. Religious leaders are the same. As I don't know the spirit that enters people, once they get to a point of leadership in this country, they don't care about the people again. It's always about themselves. So if we don't fix that, we are not going anywhere. We can talk regionalism from today till the end of the world, but we're not going to go anywhere. We're not going to go anywhere. So we need to fix the mindset of our leaders first. Our leaders have a bad mindset. And it's as if the people also support the evil of these leaders. They support the shenanigans of these leaders. Hello, you tried calling us, so we called you back. We're the only radio station that calls you back sometimes. Hello. Go ahead, make your point. Hello? Can you speak up?
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. What's your name? Hello? Oh, okay. We lost him. Hey, Pastor Michael, let's say a very big thank you to you this morning for joining us. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
We appreciate you.
I have to think that any decent human being that's seen what I've seen would do the same things I'm doing. I'm not special. I just have heard these stories, and I love God, and so I love these people. That's why I encourage Nigerians there are IDP camps in every corner of the nation. There's one near you if you're in Nigeria. You probably don't know where it is. Find it. Go talk to the people there. Hear their stories, and we do that. I guarantee you, every single Nigerian I know is a good person and will help. The change starts at the bottom. You can't sit there and just expect the leaders to change. The leaders will change when the people change, and the people need to step up and stop waiting for help from the outside. There's no help coming from the outside. It's going to have to start with you. And if you can help just one person, then you can change Nigeria. Because if every single one of you just help one person, then the problem will disappear, and the leaders will have to follow you. The leaders should follow you. Lead the way from the bottom. Lead the way from where you are right now. I don't care if you drive a KK for a living. You still have more than these IDPs, and you can help one of them. Help somebody. Hear their stories. Tell their stories. That's how the change will come.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you for your time this Sunday. Thank you. Thank you so much. And hey, the website is out there again, idpjustice.org, idpjustice.org, and go to see the numerous great works. Now, you can also see some of the videos on my page, on my Twitter page, at Rufai the Fire. And this interview is live there, it's streamed live. Pastor Mark, I'm going to send you a link to the interview so you can play it and share it with a wider community. It's also on YouTube. Thank you guys so much. So I'm going to play the message of William Ruto when he came in, all the good promises he made. And many years down the line, you can see how he has deviated from those promises on the people of Kenya. We're also going to play another message from Professor Lumumba, and we're going to wrap up the show today. It's been a great time in God's presence. I pray as you go this week, it's going to be great with you. God is going to shine his favor on you. He's going to give you peace on every side in the mighty name of Jesus. Pastor Mike, you want to pray for us as we wrap up?
Father God, I thank you so much for the light starting to shine on these dear people and their plight. God, I thank you for gentleman that like the host here that is not afraid anymore to stand up and tell the truth and call out the leaders, God. I thank you for the hearts of Nigerians, the passion of Nigerians, the faith of Nigerians, and the goodness and decency of every Nigerian I know, God. Open their eyes to what's going on around them. Give them the sense that they can help somebody, that you don't have to help millions of people. You just have to help one. And God, just stir their hearts, help them to find an IDP, help them to hear the story, because I know when they do, their hearts will stir and they will rise to the occasion. And when they do, Nigeria will rise. God, I pray for healing on this great land. I pray for the spark to start here that transforms Africa into the continent of light. Because the character of these people needs to rule the world, God. This is the nation that needs to step up in prominence so the world can take note, God. I love you and thank you in Jesus' name.
Amen. Thank you so much, Pastor Mike. Thank you so much for your time this morning. That's about it. We'll play the Ruto speech. Then we also play something from the womb. But thank you guys so much. It's been another great Sunday in God's presence. God bless you. I love you guys so much. And please do not forget that we're going to be having outreach, the Oseni Center. We're doing it again over the weekend, this coming weekend, where we're going to have a dental outreach in Dobolu and environs. Please do well to join us and do well to be part of this great mission with us and what we also do with a lot of people. God bless you guys as well.
And of course, the president-elect had a running mate. Rigathi Gachagua is the deputy president-elect. Thank you. I invite the president-elect to make his remarks. And thank you, Kenyans, for having a peaceful election. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And High Commissioners present, your lordships, the bishops, and members of the clergy in the Republic of Kenya, my good deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, distinguished members of the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, led by Chairman Wafula Chebukati, fellow countrymen and women, good evening. It is a wonderful evening, and I want to thank God that we are here this evening to witness this momentous occasion as the people of Kenya restate what is in Article 1 of the Constitution of Kenya, that all sovereign power belong to the people of Kenya. I want to thank God for getting us to this point. I want to thank God that today we have concluded this election. I know that there were predictions that I won't get to the ballot. There were predictions that we won't get here. But because there is a God in heaven, we are here. And I want to, in a very special way, say and confess that without God, we wouldn't have been here. My gratitude also goes to the people of Kenya, the millions who listened to us, the millions who participated in our campaigns peacefully, the millions who turned up to vote for us on 9th of August, and the millions who have waited patiently until this announcement has been made. Specifically, I want to thank my fellow countrymen and women because we have raised the bar in this election. Jointly, we have raised the bar. This election was much about the issues than the ethnic configurations that have always informed our elections. Gratitude goes to the millions of Kenyans who refused to be boxed into tribal cocoons. I am a very proud Kenyan this evening that the people of Kenya have raised the bar on us who are seeking leadership in our country. Not to sell our ethnicities, but to sell our programs, our manifestos, our agenda, and our plan. Let me also say right at the start that in here and in this election, there are no losers. The people of Kenya have won because we have raised the political bar. I want to say that the people of Kenya, led by the 14 million who stand up to vote, are the biggest winners. The hero of this election is the IEBC, led by Wafula Chebukati. I say this with conviction that the IEBC amazed all of us. With the results in the public portal, all the servers were open. And everybody, all you needed is a simple calculator, and you would have the results. I want to congratulate the IEBC for raising the bar. And I want to say, without fear of any contradiction, that one Wafula Chebukati is our hero. Soft-spoken, but firm. And I want to tell you, Mr. Chairman, we are very proud that without informing any one of us, you put all the results from all the polling stations on a public portal where any Kenyan could access. That became the game changer in this election. Let me also, at this point in time, thank our partners, the religious leaders, who were part of this process right from the beginning. For the first time, we saw religious leaders spend time at this Starling Center and prayed for this process. I am sure their prayers will not be in vain. I also want to thank our development partners, our diplomatic community, and all the observers who came in their thousands to be part and parcel of the process right from almost 2 weeks ago to its conclusion in this auditorium. To all of them, I tell them the people of Kenya are eternally grateful that you took your time, valuable time, to watch over this process so that the right thing can happen. I want to thank my worthy competitor, the Honorable Raila Odinga, for a campaign that we all dwelled on issues and we tried to sell an agenda to the people of Kenya. I want to promise that I will work with all elected leaders and all leaders in Kenya so that we can fashion a country that leaves nobody behind. What the people of Kenya have done, they have assigned us responsibilities. There will be those of us who will be in the executive, but there will be those of us who will oversee what we do in the executive. Both responsibilities in government and in the opposition are important for the people of Kenya. I want to promise the people of Kenya that I will run a transparent, open, democratic government. And I will work with the opposition to the extent that they provide oversight over my administration. Let me also, at this point in time, acknowledge my boss, the President of the Republic of Kenya. His Excellency Uhuru Kenyatta, who has worked with me over the last 10 years in various forms. And I want to commit to the people of Kenya that I will build on the foundation that President Kenyatta and I put together and take this country to the next level. I want to promise all the people of Kenya, whichever way they voted, that this will be their government. I know many are wondering, especially those who have done many things against us. I want to tell them that they have nothing to fear. There is no room. There is nothing. There is no room for vengeance. There is no room for looking back. We are looking into the future. I am acutely aware that our country is at a stage where we need all hands on deck to move it forward. We do not have the luxury to look back. We do not have the luxury to point fingers. We do not have the luxury to apportion blame. We must
close ranks, and work together for a functioning, democratic, prosperous Kenya. I want to thank the members of my team, starting with my wife and family, and many other prayer warriors in Kenya. And I want to confess that I have been prayed into victory. It is not our effort, and my team knows. We were working against the odds, many odds at that, but I must confess that it is God who brought us this victory. I do not want to mention the many people, many friends who have been part and parcel of this journey. Many people have paid huge sacrifices for us to get here. I want to promise them that their sacrifice will not be in vain. I and my team and I will work very hard to make sure that we don't let the sacrifices made by many Kenyans, we don't let them down. I am very confident that this country will come together and we can move forward as one united, democratic, and prosperous country. I want to ask our religious leaders from across Kenya to pray for us and to pray say more than that because I will be making other statements in the course of time. But let me say to all of you, thank you very much for being here this evening to witness this very historic, democratic occasion that moves our country to the next level. And let me thank my very able deputy, Rigathi Gachagua, for the sacrifice and the commitment he has demonstrated and the hard work he has put in, together with all our teams, Musalia Mudavadi, Moses Otangula, J.B. Muturi, Mr. Mutua, Amazon Kingi, and all. Let me not go down that route because I will disappoint some people, because that list is very long. Especially the men and women, members of parliament who were elected with us in Jubilee. And they have paid a heavy price for us to get here. Ladies and gentlemen, waheshimiwa, let me say, I owe you. You are great people. The sacrifices you made, withstanding the many incidences of blackmail and threats, I want to tell you, you have earned your place in the history of Kenya. Because today, we're going to form a government together to serve the people of Kenya. So, with those many remarks, let me say to all the people of Kenya, I give you my word that I will work hard to make sure that this nation moves to the next level, is united and is prosperous. Asanteni sana.
And it's time to listen to speaking the truth to power. This gentleman who is going to address us today has made his name, carved his own niche in the area of speaking truth to power. Your Excellencies, very distinguished ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to bring to the podium Professor Patrick Lumumba. Professor P.L.O. Lumumba is a professor of public health, a holder of an LLD, Doctor of Laws on the Law of the Sea from the University of Kent, Belgium, Masters of Law degree, and a host, I must say, lots of honorary degrees of Doctors of Law, honoris causa from the University of Cape Coast in Ghana, is a holder of the degree of Doctor of Science, Human Rights at the Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, University of London in England, Humanitarian Law at the Raoul Wallenberg Institute of the University of London, Sweden, and on International Humanitarian Law in Geneva, Switzerland. He's an advocate of the High Courts of Kenya and Tanganyika and a certified mediator. He is a fellow of the Institute of Certified Public Secretaries of Kenya, FCPS, a fellow of the Kenya Institute of Management, and an honorary fellow of the African Academy of Science. He is the chairman of Farafina Investment Group in Monrovia, Liberia, an economic strategic growth and development initiative for Africa based in Nigeria. He is the immediate former director and chief executive officer of the Kenyan School of Law, a former secretary of the Constitution of Kenya Review Commission, and a former director of the defunct Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. He is the founding trustee of the African Institute for Leaders and Leadership and was the founding dean of Kabarak University School of Law, a former lecturer at the University of Nairobi, the United States International University, and Wider University, USA, Nairobi. I can go on and read about this proud son of Africa, whom I'm honored to introduce to us. I bring to the microphone our brother, Professor P.L.O. Lumumba. Asante.
We welcome you, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Let me start by recognizing the chief guest, who is the President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria. Permit me also to recognize the family of the late Dr. Abubakar Olushola Saraki, and permit me for good order to stand on the protocols already established. Let me say how glad, honored, and privileged I am to be invited to deliver a memorial lecture on the 10th anniversary to commemorate the departure of Dr. Abubakar Olusola Saraki. Any keen student of African politics, and I claim to be such a keen student, would have heard of Dr. Saraki, and I had heard of him before this invitation. I had also had the honor and privilege of meeting Dr. Bukola Saraki when he was the president of the Senate. And he granted me the opportunity to address the Senate then. That is not to forget that my good friend, Brother Bajamila, also granted me a similar occasion in the House of Representatives. I'm glad to deliver a lecture to memorialize an individual of whom it can be said that he was a colossus who bestrode the Nigerian political terrain and made his contribution in a manner that makes it worthy to be remembered favorably. I say so because there is no shortage of individuals who come and go and their memories are not worth much. We have had the honor and privilege of seeing the snippets of what he did during his lifetime. And if it is true that one is not successful until his successor succeeds, then Dr. Saraki was successful. He was successful because his successors have succeeded and they continue to succeed. If it is true that men and women's deed are recognized for their positive contribution to society, then it is true that Dr. Saraki was a man worthy of celebration. I'm glad to be in your distinguished presence to deliver a lecture in his memory and to have that lecture focus on the critical question of leadership in Africa and the critical question of followership in Africa. And the Africa that I talk about is the post-colonial Africa. The Africa which is now divided into 55 countries with 55 boundaries imposed on her. An Africa which is famous as the cradle of mankind. An Africa which is said to be great in prospect. An Africa about which there is much expectation, but an Africa which continues to punch below her weight. That is the Africa that I will be talking about as I focus on the question of leadership and followership. As I think about that Africa and her leadership and followership, and I think about her often, as all of us should, the words of a book that I read as a youngster come to mind. And any one of us who had the opportunity of reading the book A Tale of Two Cities will remember these words. It was the time, the best of times and the worst of times. It was the age of wisdom and the age of foolishness. It was the epoch of belief and the epoch of incredulity. It was the season of light and the season of darkness. It was the spring of hope and the winter of despair. Those words define the mother continent as we live in her today. Those who commentate about the continent never tire to say that this is a great continent. Those who care about this continent never tire to remember that this continent, divided as she is, has had many leaders. And when I allow my mind to go down memory lane, I can remember so very vividly the immortal words of many great African leaders on the eve of our regaining our independence. And many of us can see pictures of young Africans, whether in Nigeria or Ghana or Algeria or Kenya or Tanzania, celebrating when we regained our independence. And many of us can remember the words that they spoke and the promises that they made. If it was in Nigeria here, you can remember the immortal words about what they would do to Nigeria of Nnamdi Azikiwe. You can remember those words. You can remember the words of Abubakar Tafawa Balewa. You can remember the promises he made. You can remember the erudite words of the Sultan of Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello, and the promises he made, and many others. When they spoke then, those who are young saw in them the similitude of Moses in the Bible. They thought of their leaders and saw their leaders as messiahs who would bedazzle latter-day pharaohs with miracles, who would liberate them from the Egypt of poverty and want, who would cause pillars of fire to stand between them and sorrow and want, who would part the Red Seas of tribalism and ethnicity, who in times of hunger would summon manna and quail from heaven. That is what they thought of their leaders, messiahs. But today, permit me to say, in many African countries, they are saying, it was better while we waited. It was better while we waited. There is a sense in which throughout the continent of Africa, there has been disappointment with leaders at all levels. So that when on the eve of independence, we wanted to come home, now that we regained independence, we never tire to see images of our young men and women dying in the Sahara, dying in the Mediterranean Sea, being humiliated at the embassies of the erstwhile colonizers as they seek to leave our countries and the continent. It was better while we waited, they say. Which begs the question, what happened and what is happening? That we have so many individuals who occupy positions of leadership, and yet the biggest deficit is that of leadership in Africa. You know, in 1983, Your own countryman, the late Chinua Achebe, wrote a little book which he could well have been writing about Africa, but he focused on Nigeria, the trouble with Nigeria. And Chinua, without mincing words, says the trouble with Nigeria is simply and squarely a problem of leadership. Whether you agree or disagree with Chinua, that is another debate. But he had his perspective. And he was asking a question that we continue to ask about the continent of Africa. Why is it that while on average 60 years after we regained independence, the 55 countries that constitute the continent of Africa, why is it that we cannot feed ourselves? Why is it that we have no faith in our institutions? We have no faith in our hostels. Why is it that we have no faith in our abilities? Why is it? Where has the leadership been? Why is it that so many years, while politics becomes the toy that lulls us into a false sense of security, our economies are controlled by people from other civilizations? Why is it? These are uncomfortable questions which we must pose and confront and answer if the mother continent is to realize our potential. Why is it that the mother continent is ever so negatively attractive to other civilizations? You know, as I talk about leadership, and as I think about leadership, and I think about what leaders are enjoined to do, I think about this mother continent. And many times, I see how our men and women in positions of leadership are being treated by other civilizations. And I said, oh God, where are our leaders? When the world congregates under the G7, there are no African leaders there. The best they can do is to invite one or two. And beyond the photo opportunity, they are told to go away, and go away they do. When there is a meeting of the G20, it is the same thing. There is no African leader there. And when at the United Nations they have voted all our countries, France, the United States, China, Russia, can come and neutralize all our votes. And I say, where are the leaders in Africa? And as you observe African leadership today, they are summoned by different leaders in the world. If the Japanese do not summon them to Tokyo under UNCTAD, the Indians are summoning them to New Delhi. And if the Indians are not summoning them, the Turks are summoning them. And if the Turks are not summoning them, the Chinese are summoning them. In the next 2 weeks, they will have been summoned to the United States of America. Summoned, I use. Africans who are watching this scenario ask, where are our leaders? Which begs the question, who is a leader? Is leadership the occupation of office? Is leadership the occupation of the office of the president? Is it the occupation of the office of a senator or a member of parliament? Or the occupation of these high-sounding positions which gives us honorifics? Is that what leadership is? From where I sit, That is pseudo-leadership. From where I sit, leadership is about service. Leadership is about honor and privilege to serve. That is why I still understand the men of old, the men of wisdom who said, he who is greatest amongst you must be your servant. This is what Africa is asking for. And Africa has been asking this question since she regained her independence. You know, when one is talking about leadership in Africa, one must go into history and ask ourselves, what was leadership before we were rudely disrupted? We had our traditional rulers. How did they govern? For whose benefit did they govern? They are still there, the traditional rulers. How do they fit in the new dispensation? When we regained independence and adopted all these structures from the erstwhile colonizer, what did we expect to deliver? That great American Pan-Africanist John Hendricks Clark says that when Africans regained their independence, not a single one of them re-examined the style of leadership. All of them continued with a mimicry of the leadership that they inherited from the colonizer. And he then delivers this verdict. Not a single African country will ever succeed by mimicry. And I want to submit to you that whether one agrees or disagrees with John Hendrik Clark, one must look at Africa in order to ask ourselves, what is the state of leadership in Africa? And permit me to run you across the continent of Africa, and you will see a continent that is not at ease. The continent is not at ease because the continent is suffering from a deficit of leadership. Look at Africa today. Tell me whether we are at ease in Niger. Tell me whether Mali is settled. Tell me whether there is quiet and calm in Chad. Tell me whether Guinea-Bissau is doing well. Tell me whether the Cameroons are stable. Tell me whether Central African Republic is good. Tell me whether Sudan, South Sudan, Somalia, Ethiopia, Northern Mozambique, and all these countries where there is peace and quiet, whether the sons and daughters of this country, tell me whether even this great Nigeria is at ease. Tell me. The answer is she is not. And I dare say that as long as Nigeria is not at ease, Africa will never be at ease. If Africa wants to be at ease, Nigeria must be at ease. She is the largest economy in Africa. She has a population of over nearly 200 million people. One in every African is a Nigerian. She is represented in every sector. If you want the best engineers in the continent, they are Nigerians. If you want the best doctors, they are Nigerians. If you want good lawyers, they are Nigerians. If you want good people, they are Nigerians. But also, if you want Yahoo boys, they are Nigerians. Nigeria is a great country. A friend of mine once told me that if you go to any part of the world and you do not find a Nigeria, leave that place, because there is nothing to do there. Nigerians are present everywhere in the world, everywhere in Africa, and Nigeria, I'm told, is a $500 billion economy. Never ever be proud of that, Nigerians. This is an economy that should at least be a $4 trillion GDP economy. Whenever you reach that level, then I'll say Nigeria is doing the right thing. All the ingredients are there. The question is, why is it that she is not realizing our potential? When we talk about leadership, we must ask ourselves, why is it that despite the best intention of the best of us, we do not gain what we desire? You know, I said that when you look at Africa and leadership, you must go back to history. And you ask yourself what the leadership is. And we have looked at Africa that is not at ease. But yet there is a sense in which Africa has had and continues to have men and women of renown. I remember, courtesy of history, when Africa was struggling for our independence. I can remember that great meeting in Manchester in the United States of America, the Pan-African meeting. And history tells me that Nigeria was there. Chief Obafemi Awolowo was there in 1945. And I can still remember his words spoken about African unity. I remember that Ghana's Kwame Nkrumah was there. And then we remember how they came back to the continent to lead the continent. And I am still wondering how in those days, without the benefit of the internet, without the benefit of all means of communication that we now have today, that those men and women were able to govern and to galvanize the attention of the continent of Africa for the sake of Africa. They were there throughout. But even prior to that, I can still remember another great African talking about leading Africa out of our state, the great South African Pixley Kaisa Kaseme in 1906 in Columbia in the United States of America, saying Africa must be regenerated. When all these things happened, there were leaders in Africa at that time, and their mandate was cut out for them. Their mandate was to ensure that we broke the colonial chains, and we did. I remember, and many of you here, courtesy of history, will remember many Africans at that time, and if I name them, you will agree with me that they were leaders. How many of you in this assembly will not remember Marcus Garvey and say that he was a leader? How many of you here will not remember Julius Nyerere and not say that he was a leader? How many of you will remember Kaunda, Amilcar Cabral, Samora Moises Machel, Agostino Neto, Namdi Azikiwe, Abubakar Tafawa Balewa, Gamal Abdel Nasser, and many others, and remember that they were leaders who did not want to occupy political space because of material aggrandizement. They denied themselves. I so very fondly remember that when Kenneth David Kaunda left office, it was said of him that the only amount of money he had in his account was the equivalent of $5,000. That is what your current politician eats for breakfast. I can remember when Julius Kambarage Nyerere left office after 24 years, the only amount of money that he had in his account was the equivalent of 8,000 United States dollars. That is what your current politician uses for a single visit to a gymnasium. They were leaders who were selfless. They understood that it was an honor and privilege They sacrificed their lives. They saw their positions of leadership as that of leading their brethren. They did not think that they were superior to the people they led. They thought it was a privilege and that they had the honor, and that because they had that honor, then they had to serve their leaders with distinction, with consistency. They were prepared to be questioned. They did not believe that they had the monopoly of knowledge and wisdom. They were leaders because they were servants. You know, I can still remember Julius Kambarage Nyerere speaking on the 6th day of March, 1997 in Accra, Ghana, on the occasion of the 40th anniversary of the independence of Ghana, under the subject, "Without unity, Africa has no future." Mwalimu recounts the history of Africa. He says, when we rose up against the colonialists, our agenda was cut out for us. We, the Africans, had been humiliated in our own lands. Our people had been denied the opportunity to realize their potential. Our mandate was one, to expel the colonizer. We did our bit. We made our mistakes. But who said we were infallible? This struggle is an intergenerational struggle. The next generation after us had the duty to pick up the baton and to run the next leg. The question is, did that generation pick up the baton? Have they run the leg well? The answer, not as well as they should have. Because we must never make the mistake of assuming that African leaders have done nothing. No, that would be too harsh. I think attempts have been made, whether in Nigeria or in different parts of Africa, to liberate ourselves from the chains and sorrows of the colonial project. But remember, as Kwame once said, the colonialists never left. He is alive and well. He still wears different masks. And those masks may appear to camouflage him, but they are here. Have you ever wondered why, when the British left their colonies, they created something that they called the Commonwealth of Nations, to which Nigeria belongs? In that Commonwealth of Nations, the head is the British monarch. When the Queen dies, the King becomes its head. It is headquartered in London. It is the Commonwealth of Independent and Free Nations. It is not. It is a post-colonial, neo-colonial institution which continues to massage the ego of the erstwhile colonizer as we celebrate. Through such institutions, they continue to control and to manipulate us. And many of us, particularly those of us who have had the advantage of foreign education, we never want to talk ill of bodies such as the Commonwealth. I do. And it's not only the British who did it. The French did it under Francophonie. In order to control their former colonies and to make sure that they remain within their sphere of influence, they created a body which is alive and well. In the former French colonies, it's even worse. They even print their currency. The Portuguese did it. So, in as much as African leaders have been trying to ensure that we change the circumstances of our people, there have been external attempts at torpedoing those efforts. And Africa and African leadership must be seen in those contexts. There are those in many African countries who have allowed themselves to be acolytes of the neo-colonizers and to the detriment of the continent of Africa. So when we interrogate leadership, we must ask ourselves, how free are our leaders? How free are our politicians from external influence? But is that an excuse? No, it cannot be an excuse. Leaders in a multi-ethnic environment must also be different. You know, Nigeria, as Chinua rightly said, like all African countries, is an artificial entity. Chinua says in his book, The Trouble with Nigeria, that there is nothing comparable to how the European nations were created. There is no Nigerian, Chinua Achebe says, in the same way as there is a Danish or a Swedish or a Norwegian. Nigeria is a unique state with many states. The same is true of Kenya. The same is true of Ghana. Nigeria possibly has over 500 nations within her. Tanzania 136. The Democratic Republic of Congo 306. Kenya 42. Uganda 56. In order to be a leader in such countries, those who have the honor and privilege must be men and women who are prepared to ensure that they weld the bonds amongst those people. As Samora Moises Machel said, if the post-colonial African country is to succeed, the tribe must die. And the tribe must die because if the tribe does not die, then the new nation will never thrive. And I did not understand Samora Moises Machel to say that he should stop being a Yoruba. No. I did not understand him to say that he should stop being a thief or to stop being an Igbo or Hausa or a Fulani. No. Those are cultural mosaics which when put together make a nation beautiful and strong. But what do we do in most of Africa? We use those cultural differences to divide the people. We use those cultural differences to reinforce centrifugal forces and therefore threaten the very nation which we want to serve. I am telling all of us who are present here, and many of you who are present in this assembly, who are honored and respected and claim to be leaders, that you have a duty to ensure that you are in front in order to serve and not to be served. But ladies and gentlemen, let us also ask ourselves about followership. You know, as a young student, and many of us who are young students, it was the culture when you are in your first year of studies that you must be a revolutionary. And a revolutionary in the style of Karl Marx. And therefore you would say, workers of the world unite. You have nothing to lose but your chains. All of us were revolutionaries. And we used to say then that the safety of the bourgeois demands that the proletariat be kept in the most profound ignorance. We were revolutionaries. Who is a leader? Is he a leader who allows meta-ignorance to reign supreme amongst the people he or she is leading? Is it the duty of a leader to ensure that he leads men and women who are enlightened? Men and women who can question what he or she is doing? I'm suggesting to us that true and sustainable leadership also requires that you have a followership that is enlightened. a followership that calls you to account, a followership that is going to make demands of you, a followership that when you say that you are going to improve the quality of their food, they do not believe that agriculture stops on that day, but they believe that agriculture must be intensified and that technology must be used. A followership which knows that when you say you are going to deliver heaven on earth, they know that that is merely an advertisement that you are incapable of delivering heaven on earth. A followership that knows that when you are promising to do things within 100 days, which ordinarily can only be done in 5 years, they know that you are a liar. A followership that is capable of discerning that when you speak things, there are many variables, and it is the duty of a leadership to ensure that such a leadership is indeed created. What do African leaders do? African leaders in many African countries have now assigned the question of education, educating their followers to NGOs and CBOs, which are financed by the Americans, which are financed by the Europeans, which are financed by other civilizations. How do you think, how do you imagine that the people of Denmark would have the interest of Nigeria at their heart? How are you satisfied that all those civic education activities that are being undertaken in Borno, in Maiduguri, or in Abeokuta, financed by USAID, are meant to be for the benefit of Nigeria? Because the last time I checked, the English used to say, he who pays the piper calls the tune. So today, when you look at most of Africa, we have a followership that is tuned from outside. It is not a followership that is tuned from inside. And you wonder why they behave the way they do. They behave the way they do because they are being tuned by other civilizations. 3 years ago, an old friend of mine, now gone to be with the Lord, was engaged in a conversation with me. And I was complaining about the leadership, and he told me, I hear you, young man. You're always complaining about leadership in Africa and other parts, but have you ever wondered about the followership? He says you are complaining about the windmill, but do you ever bother about the wind? Is it not the case that the windmill follows the wind? I'm suggesting to you that Africa will never realize our potential as long as the critical mass of our people are immersed in sorrow and want. I am suggesting to you that Africa is not going to grow as long as you who are in positions of leadership have perfected the art of appealing to the stomachs rather than the minds of the men and women that you lead. I'm suggesting to you that Africa is not going to realize our potential as long as we continue to conduct the politics of money and money bags, not the politics of ideas. I'm suggesting to you that Africa is never going to realize our potential as long as we are dividing our people along ethnic lines. I'm suggesting to you that as long as you who are in positions of honor and privilege are in the business of dividing our people on the basis of religion, Africa is not going to realize our potential. I remember in 1982, I watched a movie about Mahatma Gandhi, and I remember that great man saying in one of the scenes in the movie that he remembers one day, when somebody who was more enlightened than the other preachers came, and he said that on that day, he saw that preacher reading from the Muslim Quran on to the Christian Bible, on to the Jewish Torah, on to the Hindu Gita, and on to incantation in African religion, as if it did not matter which book was being read as long as God was being worshipped. I look forward to the day when those of you who are in positions of leadership will be able to tell our people, wherever they are in Nigeria or Africa, that it is not for us to fight for God. If I have a God for whom I have to fight for, that is not a God. The God that I worship fights for me. And if we accept that that is the nature of God, that is omnipresent, omniscient, and He knows all, then we are going to unite our people. In other words, I'm saying that if we are going to have a followership that is going to change the continent of Africa, we have got to exercise the ghost of ethnicity. We have got to exercise the ghost of ignorance. We have got to exercise the ghost of poverty. We have got to exercise the ghost of narrow-mindedness. Fellow Africans, fellow Nigerians, it is still true that everything fails and falls on leadership. It is true that we men and women are in unique positions. Abubakar, Olusala, Saraki was present on this earth. Like all of us, he had his coming and his going. Today we are gathered here to remember him, because as South Sudan's John Garang de Mabior once said, as you walk the journey of life, there are two baskets that you fill by your words and deeds, whether wittingly or unwittingly. The basket of good deeds and the basket of bad deeds. And that at the end of it all, when we weigh those baskets, let it be said of you that the basket of good deeds outweighs the basket of bad deeds. It would appear to me that the late Dr. Saraki's basket of good deeds far outweighs his basket of bad deeds. And that is why we can say, without flinching and without equivocation, that he was a colossus. That is why you call him fondly by the moniker Oloye. That is why you are gathered here on a Monday morning to pay homage to him. Now I can see Saraki upstairs through imagination. I can see him asking us, who we are present here today, oh dear Nigerians, it is 10 years since I left you. Where are the leaders? I can see Saraki asking the president of this country, how have you served, Mr. President? I can hear him ask the vice president, how have you served? I can hear him asking the senators, how have you served? I can hear him asking the members of the House of Assembly, how have you served? I can hear him asking the governors, how have you served? As to how they have served, that is not for me to say. It is for them to say. But I can also hear the great Saraki asking the Nigerians, how have you been served? Have they given you food? I can hear him ask. Have they given you fuel? I hear him ask. Have they given you electricity? I hear him ask. As to whether they have been well served, it is not for me to say, it is for them to say. In other words, the great Saraki is asking both leaders and the led, have you demanded and have you served? And the leadership that I hear him, the great Saraki, asking of us is a leadership where we are united. Not the unity of the graveyard, whose lingua franca is silence. No, it is the unity of those who are seeking to do good. Those who are seeking to do good, those who ask with the firmness that will open the eyes of the leader without inflaming their anger. I can hear it being said. You know, as I conclude, I remember this story. A story that must be known to you is a story about leadership, which must be contradistinguished from human leadership. It's the story of a shepherd, or the story of a poultry farmer. But I'll start with the story of a shepherd. Many of us from the north are famed for cattle keeping. And when you are driving the cattle through different grazing grounds, the cattle believe that you love them so much because you protect them from the elements, because you protect them from other wild animals. But if the cattle were to know that you are the one who would end up eating them, they would treat you very differently. Invariably, they do not know, and therefore you will continue controlling them the way you do, and you will continue eating them the way you do. But it's a totally different case when you are leading human beings. They are not like cattle. You may lead them in a particular direction. You may think that you have lulled them into a false sense of security. You may think that you have deadened their minds. But always remember that one day, if you don't do that which is good and right for your fellow men, there is a day of reckoning. There is a day of reckoning, and history has demonstrated that it can come in the twinkling of an eye. History has demonstrated that kings have been toppled. History has demonstrated that presidents have been removed. History has demonstrated that great men have been cut down. History has demonstrated that men can rise when they are misled. History has demonstrated that men are indeed capable of rising up. You know, I always read these words of the American Declaration of Independence because I love them. They apply to humanity. Before America became what it is, they had enlightened men. We hold this truth to be self-evident, that all men are born equal, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain unalienable right, that among those are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. And it is for this reason that governments are instituted amongst men, and that when those governments fail to perform, it is the duty of those people to rise up and to remove such governments.